Welcome to SMAM, a program sponsored by the Native Okanagan Women's League, a Kla-How-Ya Network production. My name is Barb Marchand. I'll be hosting the show, and I have a special guest, Marina Joe. Well, thanks for coming, Marina.
Thanks for inviting me.
Where did you grow up at?
Well, I'm from the Okanagan Indian Band in Vernon here. Born a number of years ago. I finished high school.
What was it like going to high school in Vernon?
Well, I was one of the students that we started out in an Indian day school, and from there we were bused to that was the time of the integration or scheme of the Department of Indian Affairs. So we were bused to the local high schools, and that was a traumatic experience, so to speak, because you know, you come from a one-room school and then you're suddenly dropped into a building that's two or three stories high, and you don't know where you're going, or you know, you're just like 1 in 500. It was a real big experience, and I was really lost. There was just a few of us that were bused in. Because of my fairness, you know, I think I sort of didn't face as much discrimination as some of my other fellow students, Native students, because they were darker. Some of them would always be getting into trouble or fighting. The only time I remember facing was one incident with this white boy, and it's because a teacher asked me in social class to talk about my culture. So I was very shy, but I did it anyways. I explained some aspect of it. And when they found out I was Indian, I started getting called squaw, and boy, that really upset me. I was real angry. And I was still a tomboy then, but I didn't even punch that kid out. I imagine if I was somewhere else, I would have beat the heck out of him. But you know, that was just sort of one incident. But I guess I just didn't think about it too much. I just knew it was there. I kept in high school. I met some real nice teachers who kind of encouraged me. I remember one art teacher. I was really interested in art because that was sort of like my, I guess if you can't talk too much, you kind of draw a lot, and that's part of yourself. And this teacher took a bit of interest in me. She thought I was really doing something exceptional, you know, I mean. And through the school years, I always took art. I always did great at it. So when I went to the high school, she was down in high school, and I had her both for art and social studies. And I was really, she became one of my sort of an inspiration, I guess, to keep up art or just to do it well. And I was always glad she was there or encouraged me. And I did win prizes, you know, poster contests, or I got one of my artworks into our annual, grade 12 annual. I was just one of the few graduates from the reserve also. So that's exceptional, you know, at that time. And
Well, you talked about being a really shy person when you're in high school.
Oh.
What happened?
Oh God, I used to get teased a lot on the reserve. You know, guys would whistle at me. I'd run across the street. As soon as I see them, they'd start saying something rude, and I'd run across the street. They couldn't talk to me. I wouldn't even talk to them. But that changed, I think, when I moved to town with my grandaunt. I stayed there with her one school year, and after a school year, I had this summer job at the army camp, and I was very introverted and shy. I wouldn't talk to any of the young boys that were there, and all of that. It was just terrible. You know, you go through that awkward stage. So the next following year, when I worked at the summer army camp, this time I had a different kind of kitchen boss who was just loud mouth and always cracked jokes, and I thought, this has got to be, I've got to change, you know, I can't be like this forever. So I said, well, if he cracks jokes, I'm going to crack a joke back at him. I don't know, and from there, you know, I just would always try to joke back, or just made myself do it, even though I was, you know, embarrassed or shy. But that, I think he helped, you know, because he was so he's always laughing and joking, and he'd get a kick out of, you know, what I said. And I thought, gee, you know, I can do it, you know, I can talk to people. So after that time, you know, I was able to talk to people, and not that shy, introverted person that would run away. No, I sort of, that's when I changed just to being a more outgoing person and not being so introverted. So after my high school life, I was at home. I come from a large family. I'm the oldest. I have 13. Well, I'm the oldest, so I'm the 13th, 13th eldest. I more or less, you know, looked after most of my brothers and sisters through my early years, and that gave me a lot of responsibilities that sometimes I feel I missed out on my childhood, but that's all right.
Do you have a family of your own?
I have a daughter now. I'm a single parent, or an adoptive parent. Came about some time ago, but I eventually adopted my daughter, and she's my niece. Happens to be my niece too, so it's really kind of strange, but we get along real good. The early years where I didn't know if she was going to be with me or with us or not with us, and but things changed, you know, and I decided that I would go ahead with adoption, and I talked to my sister about it.
Were there any other problems besides, I know there's a lot of things to do with single parenting, but to be an adoptive single parent?
Well, before I actually adopted her, because I hadn't had children of my own, you know, natural-born children, some of my relatives would say, you don't know how to be a mother, you know, and you don't know how to be, because I was not, you don't know how to take care of a child, you know, that kind of stuff I was, you know, that was always thrown at me, and it did make me feel awful at times, but I think later on, it just because I showed my love to my girl, and she was naturally, I gave her all I could give her, you know, as a loving parent, and there were times I had rough times, but today, she's really energetic and affectionate, and those are the things I wanted to hope that she would be. It's hard, but there's some rewards about, you know, being a parent, and what can I say about it, you know? Right now she's in high school. I'm really proud of her. She's in high school. I tell her to, you know, and if I don't give her a loving hug, she reminds me, you know, and that's really good, you know, that I can talk to her and that she can talk to me. I think that's important in young life. I wish the things I wished had happened to me when I was younger, you know, more affection, more, just a lot of encouragement. I mean, I'm not where I am today because of lack of encouragement. I did have some encouragement. I did have some people that I felt were sensitive to what I wanted to do with my life. I always didn't know what I wanted to do with my life.
Yeah, I know one of the things you did was go into a NITEP program.
Yeah, that came about in a strange sort of way. I've done, I don't know, you go through stages of your life, and somehow, if things don't work out the way you thought you originally planned, you know, you kind of look back and you reflect, and then all kinds of circumstances or events happens, and you just I just grabbed, you know, I just said, well, I'll go I had been fired. I had been fired from my job. That was shattering. It was unfair, but I couldn't prove otherwise. I appealed. But other things happened. I recently separated from my husband, and so I was, in a limbo kind of situation. So I applied to that non-TEP program and was surprised to find out I was selected. So I kept on the program, and I think a lot of my energies went into seeing that I succeeded at it. Mind you, the first 4 months, I didn't believe I could succeed. Maybe because I had been put down a bit, didn't believe in myself or that much, or it was my, but I proved to myself, that it could be done, that when you decide you're going to go ahead with something, you just go ahead and pursue it in spite of, some setbacks or some failures, some mistakes, but you learn that you can do it. You take up a challenge and you do it.
It seemed to be like a springboard for you to do a lot of other things.
Yeah, it was really exciting. I mean, for me, it was an exciting time. I really challenged myself. I was a single parent too. I had to manage on my own small, education grant that I had, and I did everything. If there was something coming on, they said, like my FA, my faculty associate said, "Well, Marina, I really think you should look into this. I think you can do it." And I think that kind of encouragement just made me even go further. I even went to Bella Bella for one of my teaching practicums, and that's just how determined I was to see something get done for myself. And I had to approach council for some extra funding, which I got. Luckily, they were supportive enough to give me that kind of assistance. But like flying away to an isolated fishing village really was something new to me. I wanted to teach in an Indian school, and we found out about this Indian school, so I applied. 3 of us students, we called ourselves the Venturesome Three. We flew off over there and got ourselves there. We found a house. We shared the house and began our teaching and practicum there for about 6 weeks. That was really a different experience.
What are some of the things you learned from there?
From Bella Bella?
About yourself?
About myself was just, when you're way far away from home and you don't have anybody, just the few people you tend to stay together, help each other more. But I found that I could go out to the other people as well, and they were kind of, in the village, I would go out and try to get to know some people. And some of the students, even though by some village factions that we were told not to invite certain children there, or not to have them over, or not, a lot of that kind of stuff, by the non-Indian, say, community. I'm talking about the teachers. But they said, "Oh, you shouldn't have those kids there," because they'd come and we'd have them for supper, or we'd just let them play with our kids because our kids were there. I didn't quite understand why, I wasn't really there long enough, but it was just, like a different, they were keeping to themselves. They weren't, it was hard to come to grips with all the time.
So you've done some traveling.
Oh,
Tell us
yeah.
some about it.
Traveling, long before I, when was this? I think in early 1969 or 70s is when I traveled all across Canada, hitchhiking. I had worked, and for a short time, to save enough money to take this fantastic trip with another friend who talked me into it, and I said, okay. I wasn't sure, and then I said, okay, let's go. Let's just go. Let's get our passports, and I'll save. And we hitchhiked across Canada. We had to go all through the process of making sure our tickets were over there and back, otherwise they wouldn't let us go. I told my grandma. She was really thunderstruck. She thought I was being really radical, you know, doing that. A young woman, you know. And she said, well, I guess I can't change your mind. And, you know, like she speaks to me in my language. And I said, well, my friend is with me, you know, I'm with friends. And we went. We had good weather all the way at that time. It was fall time in September. I arrived, I had a boyfriend in Toronto, so I went there. And we took a boat from Montreal, took a train from Toronto to Montreal and got on the boat. It was a 6-day trip. I enjoyed every minute of it.
Where did you go?
I went, the boat docked in Liverpool, but we hitchhiked from Liverpool to London. And I could say that was the longest day of my life, because it took 18 hours to go. Less than 200 miles. When I actually could, you know, I'd been hitchhiking from Vancouver to Vernon, and it took a matter of, you know, 10 hours. So when you're over there, it was a real strange country. To me, people were strange. I don't know if it's the British, they would not talk to you unless you were formally introduced. So the people that talked to us, or we talked to, were the commoners, I guess you'd call them, Irish people, the local English commoners.
What is the worst thing that happened to you on the trip?
Oh, the worst thing was I knew I was getting sick. And I didn't want to disappoint my friend by pulling out. I had this swelling in my leg. I could barely hitchhike anymore. And I didn't, when I had been sick while we were hitchhiking across Canada, but I didn't want to quit. So when I got to the ship, I didn't want to let them know I was kind of sick. So after we were on the sea, then I went to the ship's doctor and tried to get some medication. It didn't help very much. So I just lasted maybe about 2 more weeks before I eventually went to a hospital in London, and that was terrible. My friend, she went to Ireland, but she didn't want to go. I said, well, don't worry, just get in with the group and go. I said, I'm okay, I'll get myself home. And I guess I stayed there for about 6 weeks, I don't know, 6 weeks or more. And after I had gotten myself out of there, I decided, they told me I had to go home. You know, they were, I couldn't travel anymore. They said I wouldn't be accepted in any other country, so I had to get myself home. When I went to a laundromat and lost my air ticket. You know, that was, I had only $180 in American. I didn't know what to do. I wasn't going to wire home. You know, I didn't expect anyone to send me money. So I went underground. I joined this air club and got a ticket for $120 and I had $60. Flew to New York, got snow blizzard in. It was, I think, the day before Christmas Eve, so we had to stay at the airport, in Kennedy Airport. And I only had about, I don't know, $60 left, or less than that. So I phoned I never thought I should have phoned my boyfriend in Toronto to send me money. So I took this was Christmas Eve, so I took a flight to Toronto the next day. I only had $20 left, not enough to get home to Vernon. And I phoned him after I arrived in Toronto Christmas Eve, and luckily he just happened to be home. So he came and picked me up. That was, you know, kind of stupid, but but when you're young and traveling, you know, you don't want to. I could have asked for help, but I didn't want to. I didn't want them to tell me, I told you so.
Well, I'm sure everybody's wondering what all these pictures are here for, so why don't we tell them about them?
Oh, yeah.
Where did you do them, and...
Well, I'll talk about my sketches. I'm really, I really do a lot of sketching. And September '83, I went to Lethbridge, Alberta to take a Native Studies program, and one of the courses I took was Indian art history. So the second semester I took Indian art history and an Indian art studio course, and this is when I did my sketches. This particular one is, I had to submit 5 artworks before the semester was over. So I put it upon myself to take another art course at the Lethbridge College that would give me more time to sketch, to increase my portfolio. So this is one of my, what they call finished projects. A sketch of myself and my daughter. This other one, I'm supposed to do more painting than anything else, but I talked to my instructor and I said, well, I said 5 art projects. So this is one of my art projects. It's just, I don't know, just a portrait of a couple. That's all I can say about it. I was just playing around with color because our instructor said, well, you know, if you have it in you, you have it in you, and what you have to do is experiment. So that's what I did.
Who is your instructor?
His name is, he's an artist himself, a native artist. His name is Alfred Youngman. This sketch I just did from the college in one of my other extra art classes. Some of my sketches, I was asked to submit it for an art exhibit, so I did that. And this is one of the ones that were submitted. They usually do that for some of the art classes, so they pick I guess, the most promising students. And this is my other, I call it a mind factory, but it's just a spoof on, you know, when you go to these big institutions. That's all it is about, you know, like a spoof on that. Here you are like lemmings, you go into that factory there, whatever institution. Basically, I'm talking about university. You come out, you know, like with a square mind. I don't know. It was just a funny thought, so I thought I'd sketch it, and I submitted it as one of my artworks.
Where's Alfred Youngman right now?
Alfred is still teaching at the University of Lethbridge, as far as I know. He was a real hard person. He gave you a lot of exposure to other native artists across the country and across the, you know, like across the world, and that's where I began to appreciate that I wasn't the only one, you know, interested in doing art as a native or just native art. And he was, you know, I never had been exposed to so many native artists. We traveled to one of the galleries in Montana, which has a lot of Indian artists across the U.S. and some in Canada. Oh, yeah. That's a sketch of the university itself, of one of the buildings. I just was sitting at a window and glanced out, and I saw that tunnel, so I thought, well, gee, that's unique, and then I would sketch it in two different colors, you know, one black and sort of one rust or red color. I submitted that for my art exhibit. That's all. It was just, you know, the construction was still going on. Okay.
So what other talents do you have?
Oh, what other talents?
I know you're a really fantastic writer.
Oh, writing, yeah. Well, yeah, you do have to be able to write when you go to university. But at one time, one of my jobs, I was hired as a curriculum writer. And that meant I had to write stories or write lessons. I did write some material you would use, say, just a short story, you know, to demonstrate something. I imagined if I pursued it more, I could have done a lot with it, do a lot more. I know in my English writing courses, I do write a lot of stories. I had to submit a number of stories for one of my English courses earlier. And my instructor at that time said, well, you really have, you have a lot of material to draw on if you would just sit down and do it, you know. And I like to write in an entertaining manner, you know, myself. So that's about what I do. I do editing when I have to, you know. But that still can be improved. You know, I like creative writing.
And I know you're a car buff. You have
a car buff.
a neat car outside.
I've always admired cars, and I have a classic. Well, it's going to be a classic. I really, I fix my own cars when I can. I do minor repairs, you know. I'm not a real heavy-duty mechanic, but if I'm stuck, you know, I can do something that I can manage to repair. And that's just being, you know, I'm a practical person too. I have to make a living. I have to make ends meet. That's one thing about being a single parent, too, and not having a secure job. You know, you just meet the world head on. You know, you make use of your talents. You be practical. I always keep in the back of my mind that, you know, whatever I do, I try to do my best, and I try to give other people encouragement, even though I've met some negative people, you know, that don't have a positive outlook, and sometimes that makes me a little bit annoyed. But I just say, well, okay, but still, you know, life goes on.
So, what are some of your future goals?
My future goals. Earlier, when I finished that non-TEP program, I had received my BC Standard Teaching Certificate. I thought that was fine, you know. So when I went to Alberta, and I was looking for a job, well, after the semester I was looking for a job, that's when I decided that I had to finish my degree. I had to complete it. Didn't matter if it took 1 or 2 years. That's when I decided it was worthwhile to finish, even though it might take a while. And that's what I'm working towards. And I'll always work with my art in some way. It's not a life, I mean, it is kind of a life. I'd like to pursue it, but I have to be practical too. I have a young daughter to raise.
Well, I think your artwork is beautiful. Maybe we can show her last piece of artwork while I'm thanking. I'd like to thank you for viewing SMAMIM. I'd really like to thank you, Marina, for being a very cooperative guest and sharing everything that you've shared with us. Our next host is going to be Kathy Gottfredson, and you're now looking at Marina's colorful piece of art there. It's beautiful. Thank you.
Glad to be here.